and Ghost Cult Magazine welcomes in the guys from Pigs. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Too bad. Not too bad.
All things considering, thanks for joining us during this insane year, month 5 or 5,000. I'm not sure which one it is of global unrest and the pandemic, and the world is on fire.
Yeah.
As much as I'm pumped to talk to you guys and talk all about music and your album Viscerals that came out this spring, obviously I hope you guys are well. I hope none of your families are sick. I hope if you guys are out protesting, nobody's been hassled or tear gassed or shot by cops. Like it's just I have to get those adult questions out of the way and make sure that on a human level all my people are good. The whole music community is good before we start talking about like sludge metal and claymation videos.
Yeah. No, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
But,
No.
yeah, we're good.
Yeah. All good with me, man. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, man. It's got to be odd. You dropped an album right as this thing was taking hold of the world. So I don't know if that's affected you guys at all. Obviously, tours were canceled, but how's it been for you as sort of a growing, rising, emerging artist? And then you have your record. You work so hard on it. You write, you record, you make this incredible video, all this awesome groundswell, and then like the brakes are pumped. It's out of your control. But how have you guys been holding up with that?
Okay, really. I mean, having had, the album's been out a couple of months now, and had kind of a bit of time to reflect over the release of the album, I guess, and when it was released. Obviously, it was at the stage when it was too late for us to postpone the release of the album or anything like that, and I'm kind of glad that didn't happen anyway, because we'd have probably been sat on the album still, and it would have still been largely unclear as to when the best time would be to release the album, given that live music doesn't seem to be on the horizon, especially in the UK, and not in the traditional sense anyway. When it does come back, I think it'll be very, very gradually, baby steps, taking baby steps back to it getting normal. But I've been saying to people, I'm kind of, in a weird way, grateful that it came out when it did, like right at the kind of the start of the pandemic, which was, an immensely stressful time for anyone, regardless of whether you were, releasing music or not. And it gave us something kind of really positive to focus on. We were doing interviews, we were chatting to people like yourself. And yeah, we just kind of had that to focus on and feel positive about and feel proud about as well. So in that sense, I'm kind of really grateful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been very, very odd, but as Matt says, it's I think it would be considerably worse if we were sitting on this material for there's this sort of a natural thing where you'll release a bit of music, or you'll have a run up to a bit of music, and you release it, and it kind of feels like it has its place in time. And I think it'd be quite difficult to have finished the album, mastered it, had the intent to release it, and then do that a year later, when sort of your relationships changed with that music. So I'm like, as Matt says, I think we're very grateful that we had the opportunity to release it then, and could have been a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's like it's sad that we couldn't get to play. We've not played a lot of those songs from the new album live yet, and that's disappointing. But in terms of like live shows, it's like it's the same for everyone. Like everyone's in the same boat, so it's not just us. It's the whole music industry. So we're not alone in the suffering of missing out on live music. So we just need to wait, like everyone else, and try and maintain some semblance of patience, I guess.
Right. If you never had any to begin with, you're certainly going to have some after this, or need to have earned some as a coping mechanism. I was talking to a good friend of mine about the music scene here, and I'm sure it's the same where you guys are. Even just the first time back to the pub is going to be nuts, right? We're all going to be Vikings. We're going to rage because like we're going to have so much pent up energy and just rockitude internally. We're going to just need to like expel, exhale right after this. I'm sure the first shows back are going to be madness.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'll probably explode or combust or something. Or cry. Probably the latter.
And you guys usually have like a very high energy live, thing. Like it's not just you guys are not like staring at your fretboards. It's like a lot of connection with the crowd and a lot of fire, which I like. So it's when this is your whole life, right, is playing music, because like selling records is nice, but obviously getting out there in front of people and meeting people at the merch table, and that's where you really understand your value in this game. And it's the same for me. My whole social life is going to shows and doing these interviews in basements and backstages and stuff. So it's just so weird. I don't know what to do with myself.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Like, I mean, for all of us, really, like the live shows are kind of the beating heart of the band. Really, that's why we formed the band in the first place. Like, we just wanted to play live and become part of like. I mean, there's a really good community of like psychedelic rock and like noise rock in the UK especially, and it's a really lovely community, and that's something that we wanted to be part of, and that's the reason we started the band. It wasn't, I know, releasing records, recording albums is part of being in a band, and that's its own kind of fun and rewarding process, but our kind of main thing was, we just want to play live, we want to play great shows and meet good people, and we've done that. I mean, we were a band for 4 years before we put out our first album. So we just played live for 4 years, and we were just having such good fun doing that putting out a debut album seemed like, secondary to all of that. So it just kept, getting put back. We were prioritizing kind of going out on the road, really. So yeah, it's something that we miss a lot, but yeah, it's the same for everyone. So it will come back.
Right on. What were some of those early years like as you guys formed and put together your style? Because it's a very distinct sounding band. There's a ton of stoner rock bands, there's a ton of sludge bands, there's a ton of psychedelic bands, and you are fortunate to come from like a very hardy scene. We have our roots in that scene too. We have a big staff over in Europe still, and we cover stuff like the Desert Fest and Roadburn and rest in peace Incubate and things like that, because I love that festival. But let me hear about like the origins of the band and what that first 4 years was like before the debut.
So yeah, I mean, we kind of formed the band with a very loose idea of what we wanted to do, although I think kind of there were certain touch points which will seem probably fairly obvious to you, like, classic bands like Black Sabbath and the Stooges and Hawkwind and things like that. And kind of we wanted to take elements of those bands and kind of blend them with like more psychedelic kind of sounds, especially like the bands that came out of the krautrock movement in the 60s and 70s. So bands like Can and Faust. And just kind of blend those together and see where it led us. I mean, at the time we kind of all got to know each other just through, I guess, going to gigs. Well, I say that, like me, Sam and Johnny kind of went to secondary school together, so we'd known each other for a while. But certainly Adam and Chris we got to know through going to gigs, and Newcastle especially is quite a compact city. So if you've got kind of any niche interests in music, you tend to kind of come across the same people at the same shows a lot, and you get to make really good friends and good connections with people that way. And certainly Adam's someone who I met through that scene, and yeah, so we knew we had like mutual interests, and we started the band. And then around that time we were going to a lot of shows, and like I said, the kind of the noise rock and the psych rock scene in the UK is really healthy. Well, it was then, and it still is now. Bands like Luminous Bodies and Part Chimp and Terminal Cheesecake. We'd go to their shows and be really inspired by those bands, and kind of, you know, that was, I suppose, the main pull for us starting the band. You know, well, we want to be part of this, you know. That was it, really. Like, we did it, and we went together, set about putting together a live show, and we did that, and we just gigged a lot. like I said, for 4 years before we put out the first album, we just wanted to play live, you know.
Brad, that's the good thing about having a scene, and as you help make the scene, and then you get to be in the scene if you can, like, you know, pull yourself up by your straps and hit the stage. And it takes time to hone, you know, what you do. I followed the band for a while, so third record, the new one, and did you guys feel any kind of, have you been kind of feeling a pressure? I know a lot of bands, you get to that third album is always like very, when you've had other releases, EPs and singles and stuff, but I know the third release is always like very, or at least it used to be, like, you know, very harped upon and mythologized, right, by labels and bands. Like, our third record's our crucial one, and everybody says their new record's their best, but I feel like this new record is your best. But like, did you guys feel any of that pressure, or you just kind of business as usual?
Yeah, speaking for myself, I didn't really. No more than usual, anyway. It's not. I don't know in the wider world of music, but certainly in our world, that kind of seems moot these days. I think there's. I assume. I'm sort of thinking out loud, but I assume it's with the sort of rise of the internet and the music on the internet is that the ability to sort of release an album without a huge campaign behind it, or without a huge amount of money behind it, be able to get that music into people's laps is a lot easier now, at least for established artists. That I think there's a lot more sort of freedom to release as and when you want, however many times. You know, there's band like Melvins will release 2 albums a year, and it's. I do think it's changed a lot. I certainly don't feel that pressure that I assume bands did, say, even 10 years ago. But, you know, certainly 20 years ago, that first, second, third, fourth, then Ozzy leaves, you know, and then you start making slightly worse stuff. But
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but it's not something I even considered for a moment, really. If anything, I think I certainly put more pressure on myself with the last album with King of Cowards than I did with this one.
yeah. I think, like, certainly with us, we do a lot ourselves still. I mean, with the help of our label, who are great, Rocket, but like, they're like an independent label in the very kind of purest sense. You know, that it's run by 2 guys, and in terms of like recording, we do all of that ourselves. Sam, our other guitarist, he runs a studio in Newcastle, so we can record there. He mixes everything. He always has a very clear vision of how he'd like to shape the album sonically. In terms of like a music publisher, like, I work for our music publisher, so, and again, like, an independent music publisher of the strictest sense, there's 3 of us that work there. So it's all like, a lot of it's very, very in-house, and we're very tight knit. So in terms of like, I think if we were on like a huge label and we were aware of like vast sums of money being thrown at the album, it may start to feed into our kind of
Yeah, I think
quality is how we put things together, I guess. But we don't have that. So like, there's not a great deal to go wrong other than us putting out an album and everyone, like, you know, reviews coming in just saying this is rubbish. But we'd not put out an album that we weren't really proud and feeling very positive about. So yeah, from that sense, it's pretty.
yeah, I think like you said, I think the lack of, because there's no external pressure being put on us, then it makes it a lot easier to not put that pressure on ourselves or to not feel that pressure, which I guess ties in with the third album or similar.
Yeah, there was a sense from me on this album though that because King of Cowards kind of definitely exceeded our expectations in terms of what a band like ours or the kind of reach a band like ours could have, especially like in the UK. We picked up a lot of like radio play, which is something that we didn't really think a band of like ours was really capable of. Like, you know, that's not a diss at anyone promoting the album. It's just kind of a recognition of like, we're fully aware of like what we do and what we sound like. And yeah, we weren't expecting anything along the lines of the kind of the radio exposure that it got, but that kind of opened us up to a much bigger audience than we were used to. So when we were touring that album, the shows were getting bigger and bigger, which was great and really exciting. So for me, like going into the studio with this new album, I was very aware that there would be considerably more people really excited about the release of this album than there was for the release of the last one. And there was a sense of like I'll always want to do, like I said, we'll never put anything out that we're not proud of or feeling positive about. But there was certainly a sense on my part of kind of like wanting to reward people. I didn't want anyone to be disappointed in the new album, that's for sure. And you know, especially people who are relatively new to the band, coming from the King of Cowards album, I didn't want them to suddenly go, oh, okay, yeah, this isn't as good as the last one. So yeah, that was in my mind, but yeah, it was more of a sense of like wanting to keep the community of it going rather than being terrified of any pressure put from them.
Right. You don't want to be you don't want to fake yourself out when you're trying to create your next thing. It's certainly not rubbish. It's an awesome album. Let's talk a little bit about the Rubbernecker video, because it's my favorite video of 2020. And again, I'm just thankful that there's new music and there's all these cool things to occupy my very concerned and fragile brain. But the Rubbernecker video is awesome. It's got like stop motion, claymation, and animation, which I don't think we see a lot of videos like that anymore. There's a couple of really great people in the world doing it, and I think it's really cool that you had a video that really tells a story. Your songs are very, like very much in that sense where like there's definitely messages, right? And so I love hearing. I love that video. So let's and seeing the visuals like complement the song. So let's hear a little bit about making that video.
It was we basically didn't have many ideas of what to do for it, and I think we're playing a gig down in London. Went for a pint, and our manager Brad, he recommended someone, and watched a few videos on my phone of this guy. It was he's called Raf Bonnier Jr. And they were great. And he's worked with them a couple of times with some of his other bands. So we got in touch, sent him the track, and he was game pretty early on. And he was quite excited about it. He wanted to add some things that we hadn't really considered. But again, I mean, Matt's better to talk about the narrative of the video, because it's all centered around the sort of the character of the clown.
Yeah.
But yeah, we liked the idea of the circus, and we wanted. We hadn't actually been. We'd said that had been sent to be made before we started the Reducer video, so until then we hadn't really put much time or money into videos. We certainly hadn't been in any, and we wanted to sort of figure out a way of being in a video without it being us, stood outside a church without your guitar plugged in playing November Rain. But, and I think Claymation sort of seemed like the easiest way to do that.
Be careful what you're saying. That might be the fourth album, first single video.
November Rain.
Yeah. In terms of the sort of the aesthetic of the video, like, yeah, as Adam said, with like work on this video started way ahead of the video that we did for Reducer, and at the time we were putting together ideas as well for the album artwork, and we kind of wanted this sort of B-movie horror kind of aesthetic throughout the album sleeve and the inserts and things. So that's something we were keen to kind of touch upon in the Rubbernecker video as well. And yeah, I suppose a lot of it kind of influenced by the lyrics, because obviously I'm singing about things like circuses and clowns and stuff like that. I mean, in the lyrics, the main character of the lyrics is obviously the clown, who is kind of, from my perspective anyway, kind of observing a kind of a very chaotic world, and obviously his world that he's born into is the circus. So he's kind of observing the chaos and experiencing the emotions of observing that chaos. And thus the kind of the title Rubbernecker ties in really, really nicely with that. And I didn't actually come up with the title. It was we were chatting backstage at a festival with Sam, and I mentioned actually I'd seen someone using a delay pedal called a Rubbernecker, and Sam was like, that's a brilliant title, Rubbernecker. So kind of just put it in a list of like really long potential titles. So then when we were putting together the song, I was like, actually Rubbernecker ties really nicely with this clown character kind of observing disaster around him, as you kind of, the term for motorway accidents and things. So yeah, we kind of took the aesthetic of the circus and tying it in with a kind of horror aesthetic, and kind of just let the guy run with it, really. And yeah, he did an amazing job. He was sending us like photos of the clay characters as he was kind of developing the video, and we just thought they were brilliant. So yeah, really happy.
Agreed. Agreed. Two other quick things regarding that. So I love that you mentioned the sort of course, the B-movie horror stuff, because even the album cover and the font is like the Dawn of the Dead Argento Romero font, and the visual on the cover, of course, also. So I like that there's like a thread. Are you guys big horror fans on top of everything else?
Me and Matt are big on a sort of cheesy 70s, 80s horrors, 60s as well. But yeah, we sort of chatting about that, getting that theme in. I kind of wanted to do that with the previous album, but it never really came off, and we ended up finding a great artist who did a great job with King of Cowards, which worked far better than it would have had we gone down that route. But anyway, yeah, we were sort of chatting about the possibility of that, and Matt sent a message one day while he was going through his records of Bollywood Bloodbath record compilation, and and it was with, this would be great to do something along these lines, have some sort of blood dripping, etc. And yeah, we wanted to get the whole the sort of aesthetic of the album is the sort of like the internal and the a physical, a bodily sort of element to the whole thing, which is there in parts across the album, and we wanted to work that into the artwork. So yeah, we didn't give it was Max Lowfley who did the artwork, and we didn't give him a huge brief, but what he came back with was yeah, it was great. We were beyond happy with it.
I will also say, I'm gonna link the video in the notes here, but for people who remember like the late 80s, early 90s, MTV used to have like all these psychedelic cutaways and bumpers between shows and videos, and it's also like the melting skulls and exploding, things, and horrific clowns and stuff. It's totally reminded me, like, put me in that mindset. So it's just a beautiful and perfect vibe for the band and the song and everything. So I think it couldn't have come out better. It's very rare, I think, to match like a band's aesthetic and also a music video, and that guy captured that really well.
Yeah, he really did. Yeah. So one of the few things we did say in the brief was, which is kind of how we approach the music, is a sense of creating something sort of quite brutal, but also there being some sort of levity in there and some sort of tongue-in-cheek aspect to it, which we said we didn't want it to be traditional violent metal imagery, but we wanted it to have that sort of, we wanted it to be violent in its own way, but to be playful, and yeah, like you say, he absolutely nailed that.
Yeah, that was one of the things that we'd said to Max doing the artwork as well. Yeah, that's key to our band, or the imagery of the band anyway.
Yeah.
Nice. Just as a last thought, because I really appreciate you guys have been great with your time and your answers. Obviously we don't know when we're going to get our things back, but hopefully soon. What have you guys been doing in the meantime, in just terms of outside of music, to just keep yourself sharp or focused and not go crazy?
I've got cystic fibrosis, so I'm not actually able to leave the house, so I have a lot of free time, and I've spent most of that time my brother lent me his PlayStation, so I've played about 4 or 5 hours of Call of Duty every day for 4 months. So if anybody wants to play Warzone with me, then absolutely add me on PlayStation Network. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Right on. How about you, Matt?
I've become a bit of a lockdown cliche. I've been doing a lot of yoga. So I try and do at least half an hour, sort of 5 days a week, give myself a little break on a couple of days, which has been great, actually. Like, I probably exercised more during lockdown than I did before this whole thing happened. But I felt it was like really important for my mind and my body to kind of, just burn that energy, mental and physical energy off. What else have I been doing? Spent a lot less time on social media, because I was finding that very overwhelming and kind of not very good for my mind. So I've started to try and wean myself off that a bit, which has been good. I found I'm reading more, actually, which is nice. I'm currently reading a book called Black and British. It was on a lot of the kind of recommended reading lists that you'll have probably seen around the Black Lives Matter movement. So I've been reading that, because there's some unbelievable things that you read in there, and that I don't know if it's the same in the US, but certainly in the UK, like our kind of when I was in school, we were taught the extent of what we were taught about the slave trade and kind of Britain's involvement in the slave trade was like watching a video of that film Roots, and that was it. Like that was it. And so like, yeah, when all of this stuff kind of started to raise its ugly head, well, it's always been there, but you know, when people were sending out recommended reading lists, I thought that would be a good one to pick up. So I'm reading that at the moment.
Right on. Read, listen, and learn is all we can do right now, and you know, help ourselves get this world where it's supposed to be, or then just blow shit up on the PlayStation.
Yeah, just get killed. 15-year-olds shooting you. I mean, that's, you know, something to do.
Yeah, of course. You got to keep yourself busy. Guys, you are lovely. Thank you so much for spending some time with me and the Ghost Cult listeners and viewers out here on YouTube. And keep your heads up. I'm sure we're going to get back to shows, festivals, you know, tours and concerts, if not later this year, sometime next year. And hopefully get you back over here to the States or catch you when you're over there doing your thing.
Trust.
Take care, mate. Thank you.
Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you soon.
Take care.